Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you guys are having a good day. Today we're back here at the ski resort where I've been doing a little bit more work on the car park, getting all of those lines converted to white concrete, and now I think I'm really ready to start planning this town in earnest. It's going to take a lot of work to convert this snow plains area into something resembling an Arctic village of sorts, or maybe not an Arctic village, an alpine village. I keep saying Arctic, even though I feel like you don't really do much skiing in the Arctic, dog sledding mostly, but anyway, what I think we're going to be doing here is converting these two mountains into the shape of a sort of valley, and the majority of the town is going to be in this area around here. We might even start to incorporate the village as we go, but it's going to be a fairly sizable settlement because beyond that is where we are going to be building the most of the mountain range. The majority of the actual ski slopes and stuff are going to be out over here because we have plenty of terrain to work with over here before we start to hit anything inconvenient like a forest. So I think maybe around here is probably the place where the main mountain is going to go. And I've never really built a mountain in Minecraft before, so the scale here, why is there a cat here? That's very confusing. That's a little way from the village. I guess it just kind of wandered out here a little bit on its own. Well, that's not a huge problem, I guess. But yeah, around here we're going to have ourselves a mountain of sorts, and it's going to take a lot of planning. So what I'm thinking we should do today is a kind of preliminary planning phase where we're effectively going to like wireframe out, or at least kind of build some temporary shells of houses just to get an idea of the size and scale we're working with. And I feel like what we can do is just build a bunch of empty boxes and then slowly as we go replace them with some more substantial house builds. And this is going to be a good way of getting an idea of how the area would look once it was complete without having to worry about actually going through and detailing every single house. So we get a lot done in a short amount of time, and then we go back through and we work on all of the detail. And I don't think we're going to be able to wireframe out a mountain as such, but we're going to give it our best shot in the episodes to come. For now, I think we are going to work more on the village side of things. This whole area here, and then going into the space between these two mountains is where this village is going to be nestled. And I think we can probably just make a bunch of decent-sized spruce wood boxes, and those will act as the houses in the meantime. I am going to have to start off by farming a bit of spruce wood though, because even though I've got a huge amount of it with me and there is plenty in the surrounding area, maybe like a logging camp or a sawmill or something might be a good build for out there in the forest. But for now, I only really have a few stacks of spruce wood, and we're going to need a lot more than that. I expect we'll just build everything out of spruce planks to begin with. I think most of it is going to be in and around here somewhere in some of these shulker boxes. Yeah, I think this is basically all of the spruce planks I have left. So I think we're probably going to convert all of this into planks, build a bunch of houses with that, and then do a little bit of tree felling in the surrounding area just to see how much wood we can extract from it. And then by the time we're done with that, we should hopefully have an idea of how big this town is going to be and get the layout of the town figured out as we go. I'm going to be using a lot of reference material for this. I pulled up a bunch of really nice looking Google image search results, and I think we can make a go of it in this valley here. So I'm going to do that, probably in the form of a time-lapse. I'm going to try my best to commentate over this one, though, so you can get an idea of my thought process and where I'm starting to build stuff, how I'm building up the town. So instead of just sticking music over it, we're probably going to have a commentated time-lapse in this episode, and I hope you guys enjoy. So my first thought was we need to clean the landscape up a little bit. We're not going to flatten it completely, we're just going to smooth out some of the rougher edges here and there. Things like ice lakes that need to be covered over because they wouldn't look like they make sense in a town. Things like the terrain sticking up a little bit too high or not quite being flat enough to build anything coherent on. But we're going to use some of the terrain features to our advantage a little bit later. Starting off over here though, I'm filling in this gap here, and then I figured we're going to build a decent sized building of like apartments for rent, places where people can just crash after they've spent a day on the slopes. So I figured this would be a fairly sizable angled build, just in like 5-block diagonal sections, built the whole thing up to around 15 blocks high, and figured that was a good template to build a bunch of similar buildings nearby. It works pretty well if you build these kind of things in clusters, in this case mirroring the shape of it so that the angles were on like the opposite side, the mirrored reflective side, and I figured we would probably end up building a few of these. I'm going with 4 for now, and the back 2 are actually going to be raised up behind these because I want the apartments to have balconies, and it makes sense that if you had a set of balconies behind this, all they would be able to see would be the back of the building in front, so that's why I'm going to raise them up by a few blocks and build basically exactly the same set of buildings on this grass platform I'm putting together here. Later on, we're going to work out how to fit this grass platform into the terrain around it, because right now it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. But a bit of terraforming, like we've done with the car park, should help it fit in quite nicely. And as you can see, these apartments here are going to be able to peek over the roofs of the ones in front. We're probably going to do some fairly shallow angled roofs so that they could maybe have some snow piled up on top of them, but maybe some of the snow can still drift off as it melts during the day. There's even enough space behind these to build a third set of apartments, which I think I might do when I've got enough grass and dirt on me. And as the camera pans out, you'll be able to see how these look in scale in proportion to the town, give or take the trees that are about to grow in front of it. But there you can see they're actually pretty tall. It doesn't look like that when you're looking at them zoomed out in this kind of time-lapse form, but by comparison to the buildings around them and the car park and everything, they're a decent sort of size. So I think we could probably fit a few nice little apartments in there. And as I take down the tree, you're going to see me start working on the town here. I was just growing a bunch of trees so I didn't need bone meal all of the time. Right now we're going to plot out what is probably going to be the shopping area of the town, centrally located so that all of the tourists who get off the bus can buy some equipment if they need it to go out on the slopes, or if they just need like a cup of coffee or something like that before they set out for the day. There are always going to be shopping centers in resort towns like this, and it made sense to build a bunch of shops here. I'm trying my best to vary the shapes up a little bit. Obviously, they're going to mostly be wooden boxes for the most part, but put a couple of angled walls in here and there. You can work with split roofs if you want to, if you've just got like a single section of the build that's pushed out a little bit. And yep, you can see the pillagers are already interested in some shopping. Right here on the corner, I'm thinking that build there is going to be a cafe, because it can have an angled front, maybe with an awning over the front of it, and maybe even some tables put out during the day, although it might be a little bit chilly to be sat out on a cafe table in the middle of the day while it's, you know, snow all around. But I figured we would make a nice little cafe, maybe put a balcony up on top of that as well. Now what we're doing here really is framing out a town square with just a variety of buildings that can create a kind of natural wall, leaving gaps between them here and there because of course the pedestrians will have to have somewhere to go, and in some cases it's actually going to benefit us to have sight lines to landmarks like the ski mountain when we eventually build that. There can be some smaller shops as well, maybe a couple of information kiosks or places where they could buy passes for the ski lifts and that kind of thing. Another angled build up there on top of the hill using that natural kind of slope of the landscape, which is always something we could improve upon later on. And as the camera pans around here, you'll start to see that I'm building a gateway to this central town square, where I think we're going to build a frozen fountain or something in the center to really make it stand out. These buildings are all fairly centrally located for now, and as the camera moves around once again, you'll see that the modern house that we already built is kind of tucked away at a distance from the town centre for people who want a little bit of a quieter experience. The range of heights we're working with here is also kind of important, so I'm building up second floors on some of these builds. I'm keeping some of them buried halfway into the landscape so we can dig that out for a basement later. Maybe they have a storage room down there, maybe they have a second downstairs area for seating in a cafe or something like that. We can also work with a different variety of shapes, and this building up here actually ends up being a full octagon after I looked around the side and thought, you know what, yeah, we can expand this shape. We can make it into something a little bit more octagonal and maybe have a 360-degree view with some glass windows all the way around the outside. I figure any further than this though, and we're going to start getting too close to the area I want the mountain ascent to be, so I figured we'd probably cut off the town around there, and I start working on some builds around the opposite side, nearer to the village, which I'm still not sure if I want to keep, if I want to modify it dramatically, or if we just want to kind of fence it off from the rest of the town. Anyway, as the camera comes down here, I actually went out into the distance based on the direction that you could see through these buildings, and I decided whereabouts the mountain peak was going to be, and then I built a really tall column of cobblestone up to, you know, about Y190 or so I could figure out whether that was going to be tall enough to be seen over and through these buildings that I'm building in the town. keeping perspective in mind and just placing a big landmark in the distance that you can clearly see allows you to work on some of this stuff. And here and there I've decided to build up buildings around it so that maybe when you get close to them you can't see the mountain in the distance, but then when you step out from beside that or when you turn a corner you end up seeing the mountain again, and it dips in and out of your view as you go. Behind these shops here, though, I figured there would probably be another little row back here of, boutiques and shops where you could buy things like souvenirs, maybe the occasional cafe where people could get a cup of coffee, or a nice restaurant where people could get an après-ski meal and a drink or something like that. And I figured there would be a couple of little streets like this. If enough people are going to be visiting this ski resort, they can expect to find a bit of shopping to do if they don't want to spend a day out on the slope. Aside from those apartments and the modern house we've already built, I haven't allocated too much space for actual houses yet, but I figured that can come a little bit later once we've decided what the town centre is going to look like. And over here on the right-hand side, that's where I think we're going to start the entrance to the ski slope itself. We're going to have like ski lifts that go from somewhere over in this direction, and they go out towards the mountain and up the mountain as they go. So I decided to build a little gateway entrance here, kind of similar to the one that I had at the main entrance, and then the one that leads into the town square. And I figured around that there'd be a couple of little pop-ups, a kiosk there to make sure that everybody had their ski passes, and then maybe another cafe that we could build on the right-hand side there, just so people, if they were returning through this gate, could grab a coffee before they went home, or something like that. And as we pan out, you'll get to see the full scope of this, and it's really not all that big. I mean, it might seem big compared to some projects, but in terms of this being a town that's supposed to emulate a modern ski resort, it's really not all that large yet. So we've still got a heck of a lot of work ahead of us, but this is just what I was able to do with the time I gave myself for this video. And despite the fact that they're all spruce wood boxes, I think it's turning out quite well so far. Hey folks, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the time lapse, and one of the coolest parts for me is seeing where we get to in the world before we start to see that column of cobblestone that I built in the distance to represent the full height of the mountain, or what I think the full height of the mountain is going to be. We might end up going a little bit taller than that. That is probably where we're going to start to see the mountain rendering in as we come through the gates. It's like just after we've passed through the gate, and really you'll start to see it in the distance before that, because there's going to be a lot of stuff that is built in the foreground. But that does show that with our 24 chunk render distance, we can actually see all the way to the mountain, basically from the entrance to the resort, which is great. And as you get closer and closer to it, it's going to come into view a lot more clearly. Right now, it's just kind of this misty column in the distance, and eventually that's going to have a whole character of its own. But oh, I keep falling down through these layers of snow. I probably need to clear some of those up, apparently. But yeah, this is the town as it stands so far. Lots of work to do here, and lots of work that I don't necessarily have a full amount of time for in this video, but I wanted to at least get an idea of how this was going to feel. So imagine you're driving in here, you end up stepping off the bus or stepping out of the car that you parked in the parking lot, and the first places you can go, you can pay for parking at the front here, and then you end up walking down through one of these pedestrian paths, which can either go down here to a little kind of small park thing that I have an idea for down here, or you can just walk on this path that eventually, when I built out a little bit more of it, is going to lead you straight to the town centre, where you can do a little bit of shopping, where you can just take a look around, find a place where you're going to spend the evening, getting a meal or something like that. And in the center here, I think I want to build a big frozen fountain and have like some ice coming out of the fountain as though it's been on for the summer or something, and then eventually it just starts to freeze up over the winter. We can do some cool effects with blue ice and regular ice, icicles made out of blue glass, that kind of thing. Over here, between these two shops, we get to walk up towards those apartments, which I still might build a little bit taller. And obviously, not all of this is going to be made out of spruce wood when we're done with it. I think it's just nice to have a bulk material that we can use to build up all of this stuff in the meantime and get a sense of the scale. And I think what I want to do is come through here and have both a path that leads around the back here and a set of stairs that leads up to the next set of apartments, which are kind of built close to the edge here. But this is going to be built up around with snow and with a little bit of stone, kind of similar to what we've got around the car park, but with a lot more snow that's just come off of the roofs and has ended up, you know, piled up around the sides here. Also probably piled to the side with a little bit of slush because people have been walking around and maybe gritting some paths around here. So you can start to see how the area is coming together already. I really like seeing the campfire smoke rising in the distance from the chimney of our modern house, and we're going to build a few more like that. And I'm thinking probably over there in the forest is where we're going to have a little bit more of a fancy residential area for people who are staying for a little bit longer or who can afford to stay in some slightly nicer accommodations, some families who are out here for a little while, that kind of thing. And the rest of this here is going to be shopping. We could maybe do something with the village if we want to adapt that or completely change it. There are still a couple of villages. You probably saw them in the time-lapse running around a little bit. Hopefully they didn't come afoul of any pillagers, which are occasionally spawning in here as I make a few changes. And then, yeah, we got some shops, we got some places where we can get ski passes and that kind of thing. And then the route over there leads to the mountain. And the mountain is going to be quite distant right now, but then once we've built the entire thing up and there are slopes everywhere and stuff, it's actually probably going to come fairly close to the center of here. So while I want to build ski lifts and stuff like that, I think we'll have a few different routes down the mountain. We'll probably even, in the fullness of time, have a few extra mountains around here that people could go skiing on as well. I think for now, it's going to be an interesting challenge figuring out how that translates into a ski slope. Let's see if we can do that in the near future. But for today, I kind of want to work on the town square, the sort of shopping plaza that we have set up here. And I want the fountain to be roughly in the center, which I think is going to be about here. I'm going to put a spruce plank there so I can figure that out. But yeah, it's roughly centered on this path over here and the gateway over there. Not quite centered over here, but that's fine. I think that should be a good place to start it. And so the fountain, how are we going to do this? I think it's probably going to be raised up from the ground on the outside, but then slightly recessed into the ground on the inside. And the whole thing is going to be frozen over. Even the water that's pooling from the top and flowing down the outside is going to be frozen over, which gives us a couple of nice opportunities to do some fun effects with ice. I think around the outside of the fountain here, we're going to do this in andesite and stone brick, and we can maybe have some stone brick stairs a little bit further down, but remember you cannot ice log stairs and slabs. You can waterlog them, but the water in there will not freeze, which you can use to your advantage actually when you are farming crops out here in these biomes, but unfortunately it's not really something we can do anything about when it comes to the effect of having ice around here. So I think what we'll end up doing is maybe recessing it one block further down, and we can have a layer of ice over the top of it, and that will allow us to still have the stairs towards the bottom, and they will still be visible underneath there, but it's going to mean that we end up with the ice covering the entire thing on the surface and giving the illusion that the whole surface has frozen over. Of course, as we dig this out, we're going to want to make sure that there is no dirt showing around the outside, so digging the walls out here and making sure that we fill those in with some kind of appropriate material. We could also use a little bit of maybe mossy stone brick if we wanted to, but I feel like that's not going to look entirely at home here in an ice biome because the green of the mossy stuff is actually greener than the grass that you'll find around here. Part of the reason I think people don't really like building in snow biomes all that much is because of how blue the grass is, how that kind of like cold biome grass texture takes over. It's kind of similar to mountain biomes in that regard. It is just a little bit too chilly looking for a lot of people who like to build on a nice kind of pastoral green plains. So we can get a mixture of stairs in from cobblestone here and there to stone brick, which I've got a few of with me here as well. Even some natural stone mixed in here and there, and also polished andesite stairs, all of which will have a slightly different look, and it makes sense to have some of this stuff underwater as though it's been a little bit eroded and cracked and changed with the elements. And once we've got our little basin down here, just with a stone and stone brick floor like that, we can create ourselves an infinite water source in the center. Just break that with whatever we've got. And from there, we can start waterlogging the stairs around the outside until we end up with a nice waterlogged area. And since we're in a frozen biome here, all of this stuff would freeze over anyway if we simply put another layer of water on top, but why not give it a head start with some of the ice that we've got here. Now, of course, in the center, we are going to have to put in some sort of centerpiece which is going to be pumping all of the water up from below ground, but that really doesn't need to be all that complicated. We can just do something like this for now, and then we can add layers to it once we've got the rest of the ice in place. There we go, pretty much the entire thing is frozen over. I can add a few, oh, I think we've got a bit of a hole there that I need to plug up. Let's add a stone brick there and another stair there. There we go, and I've just rounded off some of the edges of the fountain here. We could probably do that here and here as well, and maybe a slab there on the outside just to round off the body of the fountain a little bit. And yeah, I think that's going to look really nice. We'll do something to the center, though. Let's maybe put in some stairs around the outside here, almost though that's like a dish that the water could hit on the way down. Let's add a pad of stairs around the top here, and then maybe have that come out one block more to the sides like so, and that will allow us to kind of build a basin at the top here, and through the central part there, that's where the water would be coming from. That does look a little bit too blocky. How about we put stairs there on the corners instead? That'll keep the roundness going, but then still kind of close off that central section. Yeah, I think that looks good. And now if we gather a few more bits of ice from the frozen rivers around here, which will eventually freeze back over, but for now are a plentiful source of ice. As long as we make sure that all of the water sources reform anyway, there we go, and we can even collect up all of the ice that just whizzed around the corner there. We should have enough to make ourselves some packed ice, maybe even some blue ice if we gather enough. It's also worth noting that the villagers have these occasional packed ice areas in the village, and even some of the houses are made out of blue ice, and hopefully we can steal one or two of those if we need it. Without that, though, of course, there is a frozen ocean nearby, so we could always get a little bit more of the blue ice from there if we wanted to. But from up the top here, we can place all of the ice in there. We can end up with a little bit of it trickling down from the top of the fountain, and I wonder if maybe we could do something here with stone slabs and have them waterlog, but have the ice flow over the top of them. Let's see if we can get something like that done. Yeah, if each side here has a slab instead of a full block, then we could waterlog each of those. And right here, of course, the ice is stopping the water from flowing. But then if we ended up waterlogging the rest of these spaces, actually we can do that by maybe taking out this block here, like so. Yeah, there we go. And then we can place the slab back in, place the ice in front of it like that. It stops the water from flowing down onto the ice below and makes it look believably like that is frozen over. I like that. It is a little bit awkward messing with the slabs like that though, so let's just grab another bucket of water from the ice that we've got, and yeah, let's try not to waterlog that too much. There we go. This last one here should be it, and now we can place a little bit of ice dripping down from there as well, maybe from off the sides here too. Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's working out pretty well. Possibly even dangle a little bit down from the corners, as it might be spilling out there if it ended up overflowing slightly. And perhaps one or two of these could be replaced with some packed ice as well. Remember that ice has that transparency thing, much like glass, where if you place ice below ice, you can't necessarily see the block underneath it, but you can alternate ice and packed ice to be able to see that, which I think works a lot better. And of course, the finishing touches are really going to be piling up a few snow layers around the outside here, and now it's going to really feel like this fountain is at home. We can maybe put a little footpath around the outside of it where people are treading down the snow slightly in order to get from shop to shop once we figure out what each of these is. But yeah, I really like this as a town square section. We can fill in some of the gaps that we left in the process of building some of these. Very, very nice. Very nice. I can feel it already. It's feeling very wintry. There's a lot of work still to do, but already I can feel this place taking shape, and that right there is still looming over me like a reminder that we have a lot of work to do. But I think that's where we're going to call it for today, folks. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. I do hope you enjoyed the look at building up the little ski village. Don't forget to leave a like on the episode if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.